Hi, and welcome to this video overview of the McGraw-Hill Connect platform specific to the instruction of anthropology both in the online classroom and in the in-person classroom. I'll begin with discussing some issues or problems related to the teaching of anthropology, particularly the topic of student engagement and retention. I'll then get into a specific overview in which I'll demo some of the features of Connect. And then I'll talk about the Smart Book and Learn Smart resources, which are some new ways that allow you to engage your students with the specifics of the CoTech anthropology textbooks. And then we'll end on the topic of some of the opportunities available in Connect to address the issues of student success and retention. So to give you a sense of how I got involved with Connect and some of the McGraw-Hill resources, I wanted to give you my biography. I've been teaching for over 20 years, anthropology and sociology. I've taught at the university setting. I currently teach at a community college in Lake Tahoe, California. I've also taught internationally at the Johannes Gutenberg University in Mainz, Germany. I've edited quite a few volumes on the Strategies in Teaching Anthropology series, and also I've done a lot of educational seminars like these. And specifically, I was responsible for developing many of the teaching resources, including the test banks, ancillary website materials for the CoTech texts. And as I'll show you in the seminar today, I did the video features that are used to present information to anthropology students in a very personalized and applied context. Okay, to get started then, let's discuss some specific issues in the teaching of anthropology. And I should say that these developed as a result of conversations with anthropologists in a number of in-person seminars that were conducted dealing with online and in-person anthropology courses. So first, let's take a look at then why Connect might make sense for your anthropology classroom. We'll be going through these in very specific details, showing you all of the features as we walk through the sample platform. But everything from multimedia, which allows you to connect with the new digital generation of students, to increase breadth, the amount of information you could present to your students. I also like to say that the relevance of the information that we present in anthropology in our classes also matters in terms of how well our students do in comprehending that information. And going along with that, we have applicability and the fact that anthropology is such an applicable area of study for our students and their lives. And then also, importantly, the important area of critical thinking and developing critical thinking skills in the anthropology student. So I believe all of these, as I'll show you in just a bit, are possible by using the wealth of resources that are available through the Anthropology Connect platform. Okay, and now we can talk about some of the issues that relate to performance in the classroom. And I would like to address today both the online class and the in-person class. More and more anthropologists, I think, are teaching a variety of classes in anthropology in terms of delivery methods. So certainly when we think about textbook needs, as I'll talk about later, textbook needs have changed. There's concerns about the cost of textbook and also just the availability of textbooks, the resources that are available with them, in terms of course supplements and the like. And we'll get into some of the different options that instructors have in terms of using a fully fledged ebook, using a traditional bound book, or using even loose leaf books which can be put into a binder for the student. So thinking about textbook costs and the resources and availability of them for the student, I think is a big issue. Plagiarism also certainly comes up. I think all of us, particularly in our online classes, deal with issues of plagiarism. We can also address some of that through some of the options available. And thinking about student performance is an important area. We'll talk at the end of the seminar today about some of the assessment tools that are available through Connect. And I'd also like to address at some point reflexivity, which I would argue is an important area in which the students connect their own lives to anthropology, and one of the ways that they do this will be through some of these video features that I help to develop for the Anthropology Connect resources. Okay, and we can now address challenges in the classroom. And I think anyone that's taught anthropology, anyone would say that it's often difficult to reach all of our students, and many students come to an anthropology classroom with different levels in terms of writing, in terms of analytical skills, in terms of mathematical skills and critical thinking skills. And so I was thinking about this recently. When we teach in an anthropology classroom, online or in person, how many students are we trying to reach? And I know there's different philosophies behind this. Some instructors feel that you teach to the bottom of the class, others to the top, others, myself included, probably somewhere in the middle. Now, I'm not going to say that we will achieve reaching 100% of our students by teaching anthropology through traditional means or using some of the Connect resources that I'm talking about today, but I will argue that percentage will go up. And at the end of the webinar today, I'll talk about one successful case study of an anthropologist from CSU Sacramento in terms of increased student success before and after using Connect. To jump back to challenges in the classroom, we certainly are talking about how many of our students, in terms of their engagement with anthropology and our classes, that's affected by the competition with the outside world, particularly through social media, multimedia, technology, and other things of the like. And so what I would suggest to you is we can use some of the new resources here available through Connect, such as the multimedia, the web-based information that is available, that you can supplement and complement as you like, to, in a sense, affect that balance, to create a balance between our students' lives and what they're getting outside of our classrooms. And this, of course, relates to the next area of student engagement, as well as the relevance of anthropology. Trying to make sense of the world using anthropology can be an effective goal, I think, that we teach all of our students in our classes, online or in person. And of course, lastly, we have funding issues. And I like to say that with multimedia today and some of the Connect resources, this is available to our students and also to us as anthropology instructors and professors at a relatively low cost. So I think there are some new possibilities to think about today in terms of the challenges that we face in our classes. Okay, so next let's talk briefly about learning technology, and I'll be covering a lot of this as I walk you through the Connect resources. Again, more and more anthropology instructors are teaching in the online modality, and it presents certainly some new challenges in terms of creating student engagement and offering students opportunities to connect with the material. Again, I'll suggest that Connect has these opportunities to allow for greater engagement of the student, particularly through some of the multimedia opportunities. Now, of course, instructor workload has increased with new areas of teaching, such as online anthropology classes. I'll show you some of the resources in Connect that I think allow you to take a few shortcuts, but not sacrifice the quality of your work and your engagement with your students' work as an anthropology teacher. And then we'll talk about some course supplements that are available, and also, as I mentioned, immersive media that can be used through Connect to create greater engagement with the lives of the students and hopefully increase their comprehension of materials that you might relate in your classes. And then again, I would suggest that technology is more and more relevant in the lives of our students, and it's incumbent on us to incorporate some of that technology. What's interesting to me about the Connect platform is you can use as much of it as you want or as little of it as you want. And thus, it's very customizable. It's not something that's preset for you. It's something that you can actually engage with and take opportunities to hopefully better engage your students with some of those materials. And I think more and more we're aware of the fact that students are asking for electronic textbooks. And this is a newspaper article that dealt with the fact that McGraw-Hill has faced the challenge of creating more adaptive textbooks to connect with the digital generation of students. And certainly we see across the country numerous publishers really across the world are getting involved in e-textbooks and adaptive textbooks. And certainly it is the wave of the future, and it's one of those things I think that we can be caught off guard with not being aware of some of the issues and challenges that are related to using new opportunities like the Connect platform that we'll be talking about today in anthropology. And I thought it was insightful to see that in the future, we could be going to fully digital textbooks. And many anthropology instructors, myself included, are concerned about this. We're concerned about things like quality. We're concerned about student engagement and the like. And that's why it's been important for me to think about these issues in the context of society, as an anthropologist might do. Again, there is more pressure by college students, by their parents, to say textbooks need to be more affordable, they need to be electronic, they need to be portable, they need to be something that we can use on our iPhones or mobile devices. The concern from the instructor side, I think, always has to be about the quality. To what extent will we sacrifice quality given the fact that we're moving towards e-textbooks and mobile textbooks? And that's why it was exciting for me to work with the Connect platform, being a cultural anthropologist, being someone who I think is technological savvy, because I didn't want to sacrifice any of the quality, any of the information that we give to our students in our anthropology classes. So these, I think, are key issues that we have to talk about, because just because the wave of the future is the digital wave, it doesn't mean that as anthropology instructors we want to sacrifice the quality of what we have done in our classes in the traditional sense prior to this digital revolution. And I think a question comes up about open source textbooks. My academic senate recently was discussing this matter, and of course, teaching in a community college, we're concerned about the cost of textbooks. I will say from the social science perspective, I don't think the textbooks in the open source platform are nearly as good as maybe some of the ones you get, say, in mathematics or statistics, at least talking to my colleagues in those fields. I would say a lot of the information I've discovered both in anthropology and sociology in the open source format online is questionable at best in terms of some of the quality, some of the typos that you see in the work and so forth. Now, one of the things you can do with Connect is you can choose a variety of different options in terms of delivery. So in other words, a student could decide to go all digital, or you could decide to do this for your class. The student could have options to add on a loose leaf print option, which could be a little more cost effective. You can do digital access package with the loose leaf print, and you can do digital access with the traditional bound print. Now, I'll mention this later. If you have any questions about pricing or the options of bundling, certainly talk to your McGraw-Hill representative. They'll have the most current information in terms of pricing, availability, and the like. One of the things that I want to offer is that if you use the Connect platform, you do have to add that option. So in other words, you have to tell your bookstore, and you can get this specific ISBN from your McGraw-Hill representative. But in other words, if you use the traditional book or the ebook and you want Connect, that needs to be bundled with that. And I'll show you some of the features that are available in Connect, and I think you'll see that these definitely add a more immersive learning environment for the student, aside from that traditional text that you might be using in your classes. And the other thing that I think is exciting on the horizon in terms of a lot of the things you might be using with Connect in anthropology is that a lot of this is transferable to the mobile platform. And so students will be able to interact more greatly with their texts through examples like this, which is from another discipline. And what is exciting is that McGraw-Hill is always developing new resources, and these get added very quickly in terms of giving students new opportunities to engage with their texts. And as I suggested earlier, if you have any specific questions about pricing and bundles and formatting options, please talk to your McGraw-Hill representative. They can get you the most current information. At this point, I want to introduce some of the Connect resources to you. So I'll shift here to some live video, and I'm going to take you through a sample website to show you what Connect looks like, how it feels, and some of the opportunities that it might give you to create greater engagement with your students in your anthropology classes. Okay, so we're taking a first look here at what's available using the sample Connect platform. As you can see, it appears very much like you would find in a CMS system, in a course management system that you might use for teaching an online class. So you'll have a list up here that has all of your courses that are available. And first I have to sign in here. Okay, so there's security, obviously, which is good. And you sign in here. This will have all your courses listed. So if you're teaching multiple classes, multiple sections, you can access them all from this website. You'll also notice that you can very quickly click on some icons. This is the student roster. This is performance. And I think when you see this on the front screen, you get a sense that McGraw-Hill is concerned about student performance, as we are. So you can click on that. And you can also easily access your section options. And all of these have drop-down menus. So in this case, you can look at your registration, You could share the section, you can view colleagues. What's cool about the colleagues is for those of you that teach in big anthropology departments, unlike myself, you can then actually have TAs assigned here, or student supplemental instructors, whatever you call them, that might help you out with your section, and then they can have different levels of access to it, for example, for grading. So this is a really excellent feature. Again, you can quickly view performance reports for any class, and then you can also look at your student roster very quickly. And that's very traditional. That's just going to simply list all of your students. I'll go back to my courses here, and I'm specifically going to take you through this sample course. And basically what happens is when you decide to go with Connect, and again, that's bundled with the traditional textbook, let's say, students will have a unique code, and then that code allows them to access your course. So one of the great things I like about this is from the opening screen, I can click on the student view, and this is going to look quite different, right? So you can see on the student view, they can still see my information, my picture as an instructor. They can access the ebook. They can also use the LearnSmart modules, which we'll talk about. If you have any recorded lectures, they can view those, and then anything like news feeds. So this is the student view. So very quickly, I can click back on the instructor view. Very useful, I think, because if you set up an assignment, you want to make sure that your students see it, your students, are able to access it correctly, and therefore you can use the student view tab to choose that option. Okay, now what we can look at next then is on this side of the page for all of your classes, you'll have section information. So I could put my instructor contact here. I have a picture. Students can email me. Again, if you have sections or colleagues, you can arrange different sections here, so you save yourself some time by setting up multiple sections on one page. This is a time-saving feature I like quite a bit. The ebook is accessible here. I can also then view my syllabus. So all of this is on the right-hand side of the page. I think it's set up in a very ergonomic way in terms of how they have this presented for our students. Student section performance will be listed here. These are sample assignments, and I want to assure you my students are not performing at the level of 11.5% as far as the section average, but these are sample students. I can quickly type in a student's name here, John Smith. In this case, actually another John came up. And then based on that, I can very quickly look at that student's performance. This is pretty useful. If you're in office hours, a student comes in, you can quickly type in that student's name, very quickly get that information. Again, very smart way in terms of how they laid this all out. I can also have recorded lectures here. There's this app they have included, Integrity, which basically allows you to record lectures either for your online class or for your in-person class. And what's cool about the in-person option is you could do this, right? You could just set this up on your computer in your classroom, record that lecture, it automatically goes in your course section, it's available as a resource for students, and in the case of an instructor like me, I'm doing my Magic and Witchcraft class, my Anthro 107 in person. I'm also doing that online. So what I could do is, and I'm starting to do this now with videos, I can record my lectures in person, and then I could share those in class. I'm discovering more and more my anthropology students want that interactive, visual multimedia feed that they can actually see that in their online class and not just stare at some text and maybe a few videos. So to continue down here, I can set up my own bookmarks. So in this case, I set up the famous Becoming Human site, which is associated with John Johansson. What's cool about this is it's totally customizable. In other words, it's not just preset. You can decide what you want to include in your bookmarks. Likewise, if you have your favorite RSS feeds and I want to include these, I can go on there and basically add these. So for example, the New York Times has some really good anthropology or archaeology or biophysical anthro feeds. I can include those there, and those can become part of my assignments for the class. Again, fully customizable. So that's basically what you see on the right-hand side of the screen. Another thing I want to say about this I really like is I currently use, I can actually pull that up for you. We use a platform in my CMS, my course management system at my college, which is called Etudes. And to get started with etudes, and you need a lot of technical experience. You almost have to be trained on this. What I like about McGraw-Hill and what they've done with Connect is you don't need to be tech savvy to do this. I would say on average about 30 minutes, conservatively I would say an hour, that it takes to get set up and to understand most of the information presented here. Where things are, where you put your syllabus, how to access tests and quizzes, how to create those. Again, after that, indeed you might spend a few hours customizing, making it look nicer, deciding on things that work and don't work, the kinds of things we do in all of our classes in the very traditional sense in the in-person class. So it's very similar to that, I would say, in the sense that you can fine-tune it later on. Okay, so let's continue to look at some of the additional resources you'll find here on the Connect page. Again, I took you through the right-hand side of the screen, and I would call this the foundational information for your class, everything that gives the student what they need to know about the class. The left-hand side, very specific to assignments, as we'll get into in a second. At the top, you'll see some other useful tabs. There's a performance tab, and this allows me to generate reports. I can customize my reports by student assignment, by specifics to the assignment like a student learning outcome and so forth, and I'll show you some of these at the conclusion of the video today. We can also click on the library. The library then will have the ebook available for me to view as well as my students. I can record lectures from here, and I can also look at the test banks, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. If I click the home button at the top left, it takes me back to the main page that has all my information. I can also post messages here if I like, so I can remind students about a quiz as an example, and that's also a useful way to connect with your students. Again, what I like about this, I've mentioned this quite a few times in the webinar today, I like the fact that they've, in a sense, created the opportunity for this to become your CMS, a course management system. I know in the future they plan to integrate a lot of the information here, the calendar, the assignments, and so forth, with some of the more popular CMS systems out there. Again, I don't have that information now. This stuff changes, monthly. It's very, this cutting edge stuff, right, is always changing. So you might talk to your McGraw-Hill representative if you have specific questions about how this will integrate with your CMS system. What I'd like to do, ideally in the future, is to have this as my one-stop shop for my students, at least in my anthropology classes. So there's certainly a possibility there, I think, in the future in terms of greater integration with other CMS systems, or this becomes your course management default system for your classes. Okay, so now let's take a look at what I think would be the meat and the potatoes of the Connect system. This basically is, on the left-hand side of the page, all of the assignments that you create, all the web activities, any group assignments, and again, entirely customizable. So what I've done here is set up some different samples of types of assignments. You're not limited to these. You can go well beyond these if you like. But let's take a look at some of these. One of the things you'll see up here is you have a number of useful icons. You can set up prerequisites. So if you say before students can do the quiz on genetics, first they have to do the quiz on the forces of human evolution and natural selection or something like that. You could set that up as a prereq prior to the students basically doing that next assignment. The other thing is I can do grading. I can choose manual grading or have the computer grade it. I can also do customization here. That's basically filtering my assignments. I can manage my dates. I can hide assignments or show assignments. I can work on the prereqs. I can copy assignments. I can also share assignments. And then over here, this just tells you information if you get stuck on anything. This allows you to learn how to create assignments, get tips on managing them, see when to share and copy assignments, and find out more about prereqs. So it's pretty nice that you have that available, that hover icon that allows you to get more information if you get stuck. Okay, so one of the things I can do is add an assignment. I'll show you that in just a second. So there's the icon to add the assignment. But let's look at this one here. And this is a web assignment. So what happens here is when you create an assignment, you create the instructions for that assignment. So in this case, I'm telling the students to please visit the Becoming Human website, search for information that details 2 to 3 ways in which creativity, notions of the self, or foundations of culture are detailed in archaeological evidence of early humans. Okay, and then I can very quickly cut and paste a web link there. I click on it, and the website opens up. So this is very customizable, right? If you're going to have specific websites or online resources, so many interactive opportunities out there that you want your students to connect with. And so as a result, you can incorporate these. You don't have to rely on what's only available. Now, if you're stuck one quarter teaching a new class, you just don't have as much time as you would like, I'm going to show you in just a second some of the preset multimedia opportunities that are available for you to use with your students to create assignments and so forth. So it's really nice that you can customize as much as you want or as little as you want. And I really like that about what is going on with Connect. Now the other thing, let's look at the third one here. This is a group assignment. Okay, so I'll click on that. And actually in this case, what I could do is, I haven't fully set this up, but the idea is that you're going to have, in this case, students. For this assignment, you're working in teams, you will collaborate, and then when you're finished, you'll put this in the submission area. And so my topic is cultural relativism. What I would want to do is get very specific and say, okay, group 1, I want you to focus on when cultural relativism developed in anthropology. Group 2, I would like you to focus on the post-World War II critiques of cultural relativism given the rise of Nazism, the Holocaust, genocide, and so forth. And then what could happen is, based on your groups, and this could be pretty cool, I think, in an online classroom setting, you could then have the students collaborate and share the information. Again, I could choose my group members. These are not real students, but basically I could have these 3 in group 1, and then I can add a new post. And then this information then would be submitted to the students. And so I really like the fact that you can create different groupings of students in your assignments, again, if you choose to do that. And I know many instructors who like doing group assignments in anthropology classes. I don't personally like that. But again, I don't have to use that. This is a sample here to show you opportunities of different assignments available. But I can use as little as I want. I can add to it. I can customize it. I don't have to use group assignments if I don't like group assignments. Again, I can do web assignments. Could click on a particular website. And what's cool about this is, after the students have completed their work, again, I can click on preview, any policies I have, open book, non-open book, honor code, etc. And then I could click on the grading queue. And I really like the fact that this is so easy, again, to use. It's so easy to interact with. There's really nothing to learn because you're just clicking on stuff on the screen. I can grade by question. I can also grade by student. So very much allows me to grade how I want to grade. Again, at any time, on any page just about, I can click on the student assignment view. And this is very useful because, again, I'm seeing the assignment from the student's eyes instead of from my eyes, and I want to be sure that everything is set up correctly on my assignment. So it's great that they included that here. Okay, I'm going back to my main screen. And what I want to show you now is, actually, I want to show you some of the interactive opportunities available. But before that, let's click on Add an Assignment. And this, I think, is going to show you how easy it is to add an assignment in Connect. You're going to see these icons here. Again, at any time, I can click on Success Tips if I want more information, if I'm getting stuck, and so forth. Particularly, this is useful for the new instructor who hasn't used Connect before. Okay, so then down here, you can see the types of assignments. Starting at the bottom, we have a web activity. I showed you that with the Becoming Human website. I can do a file attachment assignment. This is particularly useful if you have your own data spreadsheets, let's say in Excel. If you have your own Word documents that you've typed up, assignments in the past, you don't have to retype those. Of course, if you wanted to, you could pull up Microsoft Word, cut and paste into, let's say, a new question bank, an essay question. Or I could just manually upload that Word file itself or that PDF file, and then based on that, the students could complete the assignment. I showed you the group assignment earlier. That is available. We're going to talk about the LearnSmart program towards the end of the webinar. And then I'm going to look at right here a question bank. And this is very traditional. I think in every one of our classes, we have some type of quiz, some type of essay test, or multiple choice test. So since I was involved in creating these tests for the COTAC text, and the other thing I should have said from the beginning of my webinar is that you'll notice here, this has the big book listed, which has 24 chapters. If you're using one of the smaller books, such as Mirror for Humanity, Window to Humanity, and so forth, those then would appear here. Only those chapters would appear. So this is the big book, which is the Four Fields book, but this is going to vary based on, of course, what book you assign to your students, what book you adopt, and then that all gets worked out in the Connect platform. Okay, so let's just decide here. Again, I want to go back and make an exam. I can click on the chapter. I'll click on Chapter 2. I hit Select. And this is so easy. You see, just a couple of clicks of my mouse and I am set up. And this is really cool. So look at this. On the left side, we have filtering. Again, this is really, I think, really important. I'll show you some of this later too with the student performance assessments you might do. I can choose just the matching questions. This will then change, right? And basically once I hit filter, so I hit filter results, and then that comes up. So there's two banks of matching you can choose for the chapter. I'll go back and I'll click Select All. That will reset everything for me. And now I have all the questions. You can see for every chapter, there are loads and loads of questions. Multiple choice, short answer, essay, true, false, matching. The other thing you can do is you can filter by Bloom's taxonomy. You can choose the activity type, and you can also do learning objectives. Let me say this is really, really potentially exciting. Maybe some of you are doing student learning outcomes in your classes, and I myself have been very critical of the SLO movement. In fact, you can read years ago, I have an article I wrote for Anthropology News about this move to include student learning outcomes, particularly in the anthropology setting, in the anthropology classroom and at the departmental level. Well, a lot of us are upset about them, but we use them, we have to assess, and so forth. So this is pretty interesting. Then what I can do is, this would only require one thing. I would take the learning objectives for every chapter, and these range from one, probably more like 3 to 10, 3 to 7, I would say. The learning objectives have been matched. When I wrote the questions, I matched the learning objectives to the question. So what I can do is, I can filter by 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Filter the results, I'll see those questions. Now what I would have to do is go back maybe over my syllabus if I have preset student learning outcomes, reset those, rewrite those, or base them more on what COTAC has as the learning objectives from the chapter. But that would be a pretty easy thing to do, I would say. And I will offer to you then a lot of cases. This one here, the learning objective about distinguishing between ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Most of us probably have that somewhere written in if we're doing student learning outcomes or any kind of learning objectives in our classes. That's probably a pretty common one when you're dealing with, say, the chapter on culture, a chapter that deals with human rights and the like. And so what's nice, again, I can customize and select what I want. I can decide the grading method. Again, it's going to be automatic grading for any multiple choice, true, false, or matching. Obviously, for a short answer or essay question, the computer will not grade it for you. We're not quite there yet, and I don't think most of us would want us to be there because that's very subjective, and there's a lot of interpretation that goes on when we're grading an essay question or a short answer question. So let's make a decision here. Let's just choose then a few of these to make a decision. Again, I can customize. You'll find that each of these questions have the page number listed. They're very easy to find in the textbook. I'll hit Add Questions. I can create a new poll. Again, I can further customize as much as I want to or as little as I want to, or I can add them as individual questions. Let me choose Add as individual questions. It's updating the assignment, and it says 7 questions have been added to that assignment. So very easy to do. Again, I could go back to the text. I can say I want to now include questions from Chapter 3, which is in the big book, the Applied Anthropology chapter. And there you go. So it's very, very straightforward. Again, all of these have been created. You can customize your points here. Obviously, that is not preset. but very much you're able to customize as much as you want. I just clicked on the Organize Assignment tab, and you'll see below here then I get all the question type, the question itself, the chapter, and the points. I can go in and say, well, I want this question to be worth 6 points. I want this one, it updates, to be worth 7. This one to be worth 8. Probably not, right, if they're multiple choice the same chapter, but I can customize that if I want. I can also up here say, let me set all my point values to 10 points. Okay, and then what it does is it readjusts. This is not a good one, right? Because 10 points, 10 is even, and I have an odd number of questions, so each one is worth 1.42. So probably wouldn't really do that, but I could if I wanted to. So again, easy to use, easy to customize. As much as I want to include or as little as I want to include, I can develop that. Okay, so we just had an opportunity to look at some of the ways that you could set up your own assignments. As I've been mentioning today, very customizable. All my assignments are listed here. I can choose the type of assignment. I can detail everything about this. I can decide on my start date. It's very easy to simply go in and change anything I might want to change, adjust it, and so forth. I can show you an example here of a quiz that I set up. So if you remember just a bit ago, we looked at then the actual setting up of an assignment. I showed you a sample with a test bank. So this is basically what the student sees, and they would click on this, the right or the wrong answer. This also shows you the correct answer in every case. If there's a content issue, I could say, you know, I found a typo or something like that. I hope not, since I wrote these, but if that's the case and I'm not going to hit submit, you could easily do that for any question. If you have an interpretive difference, say an opinion about the grading or something, you could include that. And that's really cool, and that goes back to all the quality control folks at McGraw-Hill, and they can adjust some of that as needed and so forth. But let me show you right now two of the features I developed, and I think these are quite useful because they allow you to incorporate some media that's interactive, multimedia components, and it hopefully engages our students. And when I created these, I tried to go through every chapter and create these two types of features that focus on direct engagement of students with the material in the Kotak text. There are two types of these. One is called Applying Anthropology, and that is the idea of how can I take a theoretical concept in anthropology and apply it to an everyday setting in which I'm presumably engaged, or an everyday issue, topic, or context of which I have some opinion of or experience with. The second is called Anthropology on My Own, and that is trying to also focus on the direct life world of the student. So let me show you how these work. I'll click on Applying Anthropology. And I will then click on the preview. Okay, and the format here is one or more questions. In this case, the students will get a question on ethnomusicology, if you like, and a question on art and politics, and a question on sports. Okay, and if you go to the chapter then on expressive culture and the arts, you'll see all these listed as topics. And again, I tried to focus on the big topics, thinking if you were writing exams or if you were lecturing, you might cover some of the bigger topics. Those would be the bolded headings that you see in the Kotak text. So this is strategically done in the sense of thinking it would make your life a little bit easier as an instructor. Okay, so let me look at one of these with you. This is the section on ethnomusicology, and we can look at the question first. Let's take a moment to look at our experiences with music and culture. Conduct a brief study of your favorite band, musician, or musical event. Create a chart that allows you to give an overview of the musical focus. And it's fairly lengthy here. I won't read the whole thing to you. So the idea is that the student will answer an essay question, but first they'll watch the video clip. So let me click on the clip for you. And I'll turn the sound up, and actually it looks like here, let me just move my screen over. Okay, I'll click on this, And as you can see, the clip starts to play. Ethnomusicology involves the study of music in its cultural contexts. Across the world, various forms of music reflect the musicological, cultural, and expressive diversity of people. Instruments and the musical expression of their musicians, like the cultures in which they reside, reflect incredible differences. Some instruments, such as the gamelan, challenge our notions of tonality, timbre, rhythm, and other qualities. Playing styles also challenge our perception of the world's music, as do the cultural constructions that relate to the instruments, styles, and musicians of the culture. Anthropologists and ethnomusicologists study music and its cultural embeddedness beyond the levels of aesthetic pleasure and entertainment, and ask that we attempt to understand the many cultural significances of... Okay, and I'll pause it there. And what happens is, at the end of the clip, the students get a repeat of the question, as you can see here. That lengthy question that we looked at, they get a repeat of that, and so that also will be there with the clip. Now, I'm going to just shift the screen here and go back to our main screen. And, you know, one of the things I think that I try to do here in creating all these clips, and again, I recorded all these, created the music, did the voiceover myself, and there are quite a few for the entire book. And one of my goals then was to try to keep these clips relatively short. Certainly students maybe have sometimes a short attention span, so it was important for me to create clips that were between 2 and 5 minutes in length. They're not super lengthy, they're not documentaries or anything of that nature. The emphasis is on trying to engage the student in short moments of multimedia and offer an essay question that hopefully extends that engagement through the classroom, through your exams, and the like. So let's actually go back to our main page, and that was then the Applying Anthropology. Let's click on the second one, which is Anthropology on My Own. Okay, and I'll hit the preview here, and as we saw last time, you will get a brief, basically you'll get here okay, and then what you see here is you get the clips presented to you up here that we'll click on in a second, and as we saw in the last essays, you get the essay question related here. So in this case, it's talking about the case study in the chapter dealing with hugging in the co-text, and I'll click on that. And again, the clip comes up, and I just click on it, and this one's about 1.5 minutes, so pretty short. Hugging seems universal. Like other displays of physical affection, it has many expressions in different cultures. Is hugging a biological carryover from our primate ancestors? Is it a cultural form that helps us to negotiate the challenges of the social world? Or is it a combination of these? Take this opportunity to think about anthropology on your own and respond to this focus on hugging. First, create a brief typology or list of different types of hugging. You might include things like, what differentiates hugging between lovers and hugging between friends? Try to detail as many different instances of hugging and express the how, when, and why of these forms. Okay, so that is a preview of the Anthropology on My Own. And again, if we go back home here to our main page, it's very easy to add these. I can add them as part of a test, a pre-existing test, and those could be my essay questions, or I could create a brand new assignment. Again, I would do this by clicking on Question Bank, and let's click on Chapter 2, Select, and you saw this previously in the video. And in this case, I'm just going to click on the Anthropology on My Own and Anthropology, or Applying Anthropology filters. Okay, so I'm just clicking on those, click Filter Results, and then you get the test questions that are available. And if I wanted to, again, I can preview this, add the question, and so forth. So very, very easy to do in terms of creating this for your students and very quickly setting something up that hopefully engages them with your class material. And let me offer that in creating many of these resources, again, the emphasis was on creating greater interactivity that the students could experience with their course materials, whether it be the textbook or multimedia or web assignments that they might experience in their classroom. Obviously, as anthropology instructors, we might realize, whether we like it or we don't, that we are competing with our students in terms of their distractions that they experience with social media and technology. So for me, working on some of these resources allowed to think about how to create more interactive and hopefully engaging and personally applied reflexive assignments for our students. This was very important, though. Not sacrifice the quality just because we're adapting to the technology of the world. So I think this is some important food for thought as we think about the future of teaching in our various anthropology classrooms. So I'm going to show you here the video of SmartBook, but I wanted to introduce the basis of it. Basically, there are 4 stages: the practice, read, preview, and recharge stage. And each of these stages is specifically designed to better assess whether or not students are understanding the material. In the preview stage, they get the basic organization of the chapter. And this is basically set up as an outline for the student to see, and you'll see this on the other video, on the left-hand side of the screen. And then if they choose, they can click on any of those topics and read on the right-hand side of the screen the textbook. In the read stage, they're going to actually look at specific highlights that have been created, which are key areas of emphasis. And based on this, hopefully they will have a better comprehension of some of the core areas. And presumably, some of these core areas will be assessed by you, the anthropology instructor, in terms of your assignments, your quizzes, and your tests. Then they go into the practice stage, the 3rd stage. This is testing the student's mastery of the content areas in very specific contexts of the chapter. They'll get basically a series of questions. They have to focus on these questions. And then following this stage, they get into the final stage, which is the recharge stage, that basically assesses what they need to work on, gives them some insights about how they can better cope with some of their limitations in terms of their knowledge of the chapter. Okay, so let's look at an additional area, and this is a very adaptive area that they've developed in terms of Connect. And one of the things that is exciting about McGraw-Hill is they're constantly, bringing in new technologies, thinking of new ways to engage students. And this is one of those ways, actually, and this is the LearnSmart platform. So I've set up a sample here. Again, you can choose any chapter you want. I'm going to click on Chapter 13, which is the Method and Theory chapter. Okay, and I'm previewing this as a student. This will load up the content here. Okay, and you'll recall, so one thing to note on here is when you move to this screen, you're going to see then some different icons. This will have your assignments listed. These are the 4 stages that they've set up, that we've addressed in terms of how the SmartBook works. The preview stage is the first one. And so let's take a look at this. In the preview stage, what you see on the left-hand side is the chapter outline. So at the top, Method and Theory in Cultural Anthropology, Anthropology's distinctive strategies. Scroll down, the types of research, and then at the bottom, you have all the various anthropologists and the different theories. So the concept behind this stage is basically to give the students the outline of the chapter, to give them the overview, and that's why it's called the preview stage. Now, in addition to then having that, and you see these bars expand out on the screen, I can then say, okay, if I'm a student, well, let me learn about this. I see the main outline form. Let me click on the ethnographic techniques. I click on that, and that appears in my ebook, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. What's nice about this is I can choose the font size that I want. I can make it bigger. If I'm somewhat sight impaired, I can address that. I can also click on this here, which goes back and forth to the topics.
You've been in the preview phase for a while now. It's possible to read a book in the preview phase, but you're missing the highlight features that will help you prioritize the text.
Okay, and that's kind of cool too, is this person, assistant pops up and then gives you some information about the chapter or about the actual content that you're reading or the stage that you're working in. Again, in Learn Smart, you go through these 4 stages. So that was the preview stage. I click on Read, and next I go into the Read stage, and that is where I'm going to actually read the textbook. And that's the next important stage. Then I get into 2 stages that are about the assessment, and this is the student taking an opportunity to say, okay, do I really know the information that's presented to me in the chapter? We're in the practice stage. Okay, so what will happen is a question comes up. One ethnographic technique used by anthropologists involves drawing and notating the extended families of individuals in the study community in order to understand their histories and current social networks. What is the name of this method? Okay, and I might be thinking, is it kinship? Is it genealogy? So maybe I type in kinship. And at this point I say, I know it, think so, unsure, no idea. And basically it's going to then adjust the student score based on their level of awareness. So I'll put unsure because I wasn't quite sure. And no, indeed, it was a genealogical method, so I got that one wrong. Now, immediately, as a student, if I got that wrong, I click on the icon and I read about it. And there it appears, the genealogical method. Now, you'll notice there are key highlights here. These highlights have been preset. And indeed, I get a lot of questions in doing these seminars. Can you adapt the highlights or change them? You cannot. And the reason for this is, as we've discussed earlier, they've done extensive ethnographic research in terms of how students learn, looking at how students interact with their textbooks, how they make their own highlighting. So these highlights then are based on that, and then based on this adaptive platform which tries to increase student comprehension and student understanding of the materials. But the student then can read the highlights and realize, okay, in this case, I needed to know the genealogical method. It wasn't kinship. And so that's a really cool way, I think, for the student to engage with the material and to work on it if he or she is less aware of certain concepts compared to others. Again,
the practice phase will help you reinforce your comprehension of what you have just read.
At any point, I can click on my helper down here, and that's going to give me information about this particular phase. I can also click on Recharge, and basically the Recharge is going to try to refresh my knowledge. And in this case, it's saying, it would be best to read more, but it's going to ask me a question. Again, I can click on that, and I get it right or I get it wrong. Again, I can use the opportunity to read more about it in the textbook. Down here, you're also going to see reports presented to you. This is quite cool, actually. This allows you to look at your learning status, your topic scores, questions that I missed, challenging questions, my own self-assessment, and my tree of knowledge. So we can look at a few of these. We can look at the missed questions. And appears like this was the one that I missed, right? Yeah, that was the question about genealogies versus kinship. So in this case, I could then click on, or actually this one, no, this one's talking about ethnographers and life histories. And I think what happened here is I was doing some previous questions, and so some of the missed questions in the past, prior to doing them with you today, are appearing up here on the list. So if we go back to reports, I can click on self-assessment, and this basically is telling me when I went through my questions how aware I was or not to the answers that I was attempting to answer, or the questions I was attempting to answer rather. So 25% aware, I knew the answer, 25%. And this would be good for the student, right? If I was unaware that I didn't know the answer, right? You thought you knew the answer but got the question wrong. Well, if there's a high percentage in this category, be careful. You need to learn the material better. What I like about this is this might show the student, if this is really popping up like 60, 70%, the student hopefully, if he or she is proactive, will go back and reread the chapter, because these are some clear red flags to the student that they need to do a better job in terms of reading the chapter prior to taking exams. What I also like about this is prior to maybe taking an in-person class test or an online class test, the student can interact with the LearnSmart modules and do their self-assessment on their own. They're hopefully taking responsibility for their learning knowledge in the class. Now I can also click then on the tree of knowledge, and this is showing me basically watch your tree grow as you learn. See what happens if you stop studying. This is going to allow me to click on. Okay, so this is actually kind of funny because I haven't done much with this, right? If I master everything, it's going to look like this. If I don't do much, right, if I keep up with my current pace, it's going to look like that. Because obviously I haven't done a lot of this. I'm just showing you a sample. But theoretically, this would have more branches on it and limbs and so forth of the tree to achieve that level of mastery. Again, what's nice about this is the student is getting a graphical representation of their learning progress in the class. It's using analogy or metaphor to get the student to think about total comprehension in the class. So it's one of many ways I think that students have opportunities to do their own self-assessment using Connect and using SmartBook in the anthropology classroom. And we'll close today on addressing student success and retention and how many of the resources available through Connect and the McGraw-Hill platform allow you as an anthropology instructor to better assess student performance in your class and to think about issues like retention. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at a final aspect of the Connect platform, and this is the assessment component. This, I think, is particularly useful as you're maybe trying to deal with incredible workload issues, dealing with student learning outcomes and the like. So for this, I click on the top icon, Performance, and I click on Reports. And there's a load of options here. I can choose assignment results, I can look at student performance, assignment statistics, item analysis, category analysis, at-risk report, or view all reports. So as an example, I can click on assignment statistics, and because my sample class here isn't populated, you're not going to see the full report that you typically would see. But I'll click on the report, and it's going to show me then, in this case, and I can click expand or collapse, it will show me the mean scores, the high scores, the low scores, number of students submitted, number of tries submitted. You can decide on your own if you want students to have multiple attempts, and therefore you'll see like attempt 1, attempt 2, and so forth. Again, it'll break it down by my different assignments: quiz 1, web assignment, video quiz, applying anthropology, anthropology on my own. So very useful because it gives you in one place on your screen all of the information about your students. So very strong in terms of assessment. Now, again, I won't take you through every report. Certainly with your own sample Connect course, you can look at all this and you can see how it works and see how it might work for you best in your class. One of the things I really enjoy is the at-risk report. And that, again, is found just on the drop-down menu. I'll click on that. And this is pretty interesting because what it's doing is it's basically looking for certain patterns of learning. And again, in the last section, we talked about the LearnSmart and how LearnSmart is an adaptive technology. One of the things that's key about Connect is that it's adapting to the students. And I really like this in terms of how it's not just doing this very straightforward route form of grading or analysis. So this then allows me to see, based on my own parameters that I set up, how various students are doing. The safe students are in green. Keep watch, I don't have any here. Again, I only have 3 students populated in my system, would be in yellow. And then the at risk is in the pink or red here. And what I can quickly do is say, oh, my student here, my sample student Mark isn't doing so well. I need to send Mark a message. I type the message, and then that goes to the student. I can do that for all my at-risk students by just choosing the drop-down. Again, very easy. They thought of just about everything in terms of saying, okay, what are some ways to really engage students and to remediate students who aren't doing so well in my classes? So I would say whether it's the at-risk report or it's any of the many performance metrics that you can use, they've thought about so much in terms of giving anthropology instructors opportunities to carefully assess student performance, assess them as often as you want as an instructor, and then to remediate in the case of students who are at risk. So this is one of many opportunities I think you'll see that is very much focused both on the anthropology student and on the anthropology instructor in terms of trying to deal with classroom performance, whether in the online or in-person format. So I thought it would be useful to share with you this one case study that focuses on the efforts to use Connect to improve student comprehension of materials, to improve their performance in a class. And this specifically was done, this study, with one of my colleagues who teaches at CSU Sacramento, Terry Castaneda. And like a lot of anthropologists, I think Terry was interested in finding something new that would engage students in conversations with her and in anthropology seminars that she was a part of. I heard her say, along with other anthropologists, that it was often hard to keep up with some of the new forms of media and technology that have likely impacted how students are able to connect with their own materials in a classroom, whether they're taking anthropology or another class. And so when we discuss Connect with faculty at CSU Sacramento in the anthropology program, the interest was in basically looking for ways to increase student engagement. And so what you see here is, in a sense, a before and an after that Dr. Castaneda experienced with her grade distributions in the class. You'll see spring of one quarter and a year later, spring in 2014. The green is showing us the grades on the final exam without Connect. The yellow is showing the grades with Connect. So in her particular case, she discovered on this one assignment that this actually improved her assignment grades in terms of particular assignment. And then she also looked at the pass exam rates, or the pass rates rather. Again, the green is without Connect, the yellow is with Connect. You can see that went up substantially. And then even more so with the average final exam score there in figure 2 on the right. Green is without Connect, yellow is with Connect. Now, of course, this is one classroom, very specific students, one anthropology professor. This doesn't necessarily mean that your results will be the same. There's never, I think, a guarantee with any learning resource that ultimately it will be a total success. But I think combined with your hard work, with your knowledge as a faculty member, with your skills as an instructor in anthropology, there are new opportunities out there, hopefully, that will do a number of things that will increase student engagement with their classes and will also hopefully increase the grades and the success rates that our students have in our classes. Okay, so in summarizing some of the resources we've looked at here with Connect and SmartBook, we've talked about course management and how there are opportunities to better manage your course using these resources. You can also think about greater student engagement that could take place if you use some of these opportunities here in Connect and SmartBook. You can also think about how there are new resources and assignments available, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. If you want to use the preset assignments or any of those video features I have set up for you, you can use those. And then, as we saw with the last section on reports, there are powerful tools of assessment that allow you to get a better grasp of whether or not students are learning in your class, and then this allows you to make some adaptations to your own work in the class based on what's happening in real time during the quarter or the semester as you're teaching your class. And then again, whether you're teaching an online class or an in-person class, I think there are a lot of opportunities to use Connect and SmartBook and the many resources that have been set up here for anthropology classes to focus on better student engagement, comprehension, and learning in your classroom. And for me, there's an opportunity, whether I'm teaching an in-person class or an online class, to engage my students. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is to use a variety of modalities of teaching, whether I'm creating assignments for them or I'm doing lectures using multimedia and the like. And so you can see that there are opportunities for you to use these resources within Connect and SmartBook and to customize those however you might like within your own anthropology class. So I hope you enjoyed this opportunity today to look at some of the Anthropology Smartbook Connect resources available here through McGraw-Hill Higher Education. And hopefully you had the opportunity to think about some new issues in terms of teaching anthropology. I know as an anthropology instructor, I'm constantly thinking of new ways to better engage my students, new ways to make my teaching more effective, new ways to think about effective assessment, and new ways of thinking about time management in my classroom, in my grading, in my class prep. So I think there are a lot of unique opportunities present with Connect through the McGraw-Hill platform. I hope you'll look at some of these. If you have any additional questions, let's do a Skype video chat. Let's talk via email, and hopefully we can have some exciting conversations about the future of teaching anthropology, whether in person or online.